Fans, welcome back to another week of Working Fans Wednesday. We are joined here by guest host Josh DeBord because producer Joe is deep in the trees, but you can
Smoking the trees.
find us on working. You can find us on the workingfanspodcast.com and alleverythingentertainment.com. Facebook, Working Fans Podcast, workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com, Instagram, workingfanswrestling_pod. Our Patreon is patreon.com/workingfanspodcast. Twitch, Fans Working. Now, our podcast releases tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. and is available on most podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Cast. If you can find podcasts, you can find us. Now, we are brought to you by 482 Designs. That's OUR82designs.com. You see the shirt I'm wearing right here? You can have the same one stretched across your titties. You just got to email us at workingfanspodcast@gmail.com. All Everything Entertainment, YouTube, Facebook. That's at AEEDOTCOM at AEE.com on Twitter. And we are brought to you by WrestleTopia. That's WrestleTopia on Facebook, at WrestleTopia on Twitter, and WrestleTopiaTV.pivotshare.com. Now, we've got another sponsor that I'm not going to say that it's got a precise ceramic aid that cut it out of this preview, but we got a preview code that we're not going to mention for another week. And AJ, you wanted to introduce our guest. You told me to shut the fuck up. So why don't you take the reins here and let everybody know who our guest host is today?
Ladies and gentlemen, this week we've got one of the hottest guest hosts that you can possibly have. This man brings you regularly scheduled bouts of hostility. He also comes to you straight from the DeBord room. We've got Josh DeBord. This man hates Cody, but absolutely would love a shot of brandy. Please welcome him to the show.
Hey, appreciate it. The brandy thing's debatable, but we'll see. Cody's all cocky because I think he can have the right to his last name back after today. So good for him. But I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks for being on, doing us a solid, man. We appreciate it.
Dude, no problem.
So I guess we're going to kick off a little bit today. We had a little discussion me and Joe were talking about, and we want to talk about who the better big man in wrestling is. Big Man Vader or Andre the Giant? I was saying Big Show, but I guess it's going to be Andre the Giant.
You keep telling me the opposite one every time we go to debate. I think you're trying to
when I look down at the screen and I see Andre, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be Andre.
This one's not going to be as close as the other one I think would have been.
Well, let's just talk about him, all right? Both. I'll tell you what. I'll take the case of Vader, since Andre is obviously the institution, and he's definitely going to be the favorite here. I don't think, I could probably argue Vader definitely had more success in Japan.
Andre was big in Japan, too. His matches with Ricky Dozan, and even when he first, what's up, Tank Middleton? Woo. Even when he first started wrestling over there, he wrestled the Giant Baba. He wrestled against Inoki.
Yeah.
And at that point in time in his career, he was much more mobile than the Andre that we would have seen in the late 80s and right into his death in the 90s. You're talking about a totally different Andre the Giant in Japan.
Very true. I would say that, Vader, though, like in the major two companies, All Japan and New Japan, he was a world champion for both. That can't be underestimated, especially as an American. And the other thing is when you're talking mobility, as mobile as Andre was, Vader's the first guy of that size we saw do a moonsault.
But did Vader ever sell out Quebec?
No, I'm not sure he did. And he certainly didn't have the records that Andre had at the Silverdome. So, I mean,
yeah, and
he was a partner in that. There was a guy.
From what I understand, he could not drink a case of beer, 16 bottles of wine, and flip over a Volvo in the same night, too. So
he couldn't even handle Mr. Wonderful, apparently. But you know what? That's okay.
Not only Mr. Wonderful in shower shoes.
And a bad arm.
Yes.
But that should tell you how tough Paul Orndorff is.
or how soft Vader is.
Hey, I don't know about that. Now, listen, hey, if Vader was soft, would he be able to have broke that preliminary wrestler's back? I mean,
You mean the guy who gave him his body, Joe Thurman, and he snapped him in half like a twig? Yeah, that's tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying. I don't think Joe thought he was soft. That's all I'm saying.
No, that's if anything, Vader got hard over the situation.
Yeah.
Which you would notice better if he was manscaping.
Yes.
Now,
listen,
where do you sit on the Vader Andre debate?
What was that, Joe?
He wants to know where Josh sits on the Vader Andre debate.
It's Andre, and it's not even close. It's like one of those debates. It's like, who's better, Elias or Cody? I mean, it's Elias. But, like, honestly, Vader, I mean, you do have to – it's Andre. It's Andre.
Yeah.
But you do have to respect what Vader did accomplish. I mean, Andre never appeared on Boy Meets World. So, I mean, Vader's got the leg up on him there. I mean, he got to hang out with Topanga, I'm sure. But the dude was great on the independent circuit. I mean, for a dude that size, very athletic guy, which nowadays we see it all the time. But back then it was something that you rarely seen. Right now you see Bronson Reed and you see Keith Lee doing moonsaults, and it's like nobody cares no more. It's spot. But these guys, well, not really Andre, but Vader was athletically probably the most gifted big guy back in those days. Just Andre was bigger than life and got more opportunities because of it. Dare I say, and Hulk Hogan helped, right?
Sure.
In that time period, the only two people who really could do what Vader did was him and then Bam Bam Bigelow.
Yeah, I agree.
Those were really the only two big guys that were able to do the aerial stuff. Now, when we talk about comparing the two, we have to talk about them as draws. Andre was the draw basically from the early 70s until he ended up retiring in the late around the Hogan era. And he would tour everywhere, and they would put three guys against him. They would put their biggest talent against him. And no matter where he went, that was the draw in that town for the evening. Well, whereas Vader only really had 4 years on top.
I will say this, and you're correct with all of that. But if we were going to do this, say, Vader versus Big Show, like one of the other topics I wanted to talk about.
Nobody wants that topic, Dave.
Big Show was never the draw Andre was. And that has a lot to do with the booking and the time period. Because Andre came from a time period where you could bring him to different territories and you could build him up, and he takes time off. Big Show we had on our TV every week. He became a face and a heel like 20 different times. And he also got beat a bunch of times. Andre was a lot more protected.
Big Show is a bigger draw now on Netflix than he ever was in wrestling.
That's true.
No house was ever drawn by Big Show. Hulk Hogan versus Andre from Detroit when he got thrown off the top of a roof. Nobody was tuning in to see the Big Show.
Hogan versus Big Show, you mean at the
that's what I meant. Sorry, Big Show.
Andre wasn't taking a dive off the roof.
Sorry.
No matter what.
Andre's son, I think he was at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Tim thinks historically it has to be Andre, but Vader was far more talented in the ring.
That's very fair. Yeah.
Now, wait a minute. We have to give credit to Andre here also when it comes to athleticism. He threw a beautiful drop kick, was actually able to move really well when he was young. However, you got to remember, he was taught to wrestle like a big man in the 1970s. So people would not have wanted him to ever leave his feet or to do those athletic things that Vader did. If Vader tried doing that stuff in the 70s, he would have been chastised.
He was Andre's son.
Oh, man, that's
I know. I was going to bring that up, that WF kind of ruined Andre's athleticism by, I mean, not ruined him, but they overly personified him as a big man. So they took away the drop kick and they took away anything athletically that he might have been able to offer.
Even as big as he was, they had him do tricks like stand on boxes and stuff so that he would look even bigger when getting interviewed by like Vince McMahon, who's 6'2". So they would have him actually, Andre, stand on a box so he appeared to be even taller compared to Vince McMahon. It was all stuff that they wanted to do to just make him look like this monster. Whereas I think we can all agree Vince McMahon basically killed Vader.
He does that.
Yeah, he did not help him out at all.
No, Vince gets in. I don't know. It's like current day, which we'll get to later. But like he gets in these moods where he's just like, oh yeah, this dude's push. I don't care. He has the title. He's done. And then 2 weeks later, the guy don't exist anymore. It's like he's never there. So I mean, you have to give Andre a little bit of credit, I guess, for staying on Vince's good side all those years, because nowadays that's like impossible to do for more than a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, the other big thing was for Andre was the emotional connection. I know as kids, me and Dave grew up in the time period where Andre was really over in that beginning of the Rock and Wrestling. And I don't know about you, Dave, but when I saw that match with Patero, when they ended up shaving his head, him and Stud, that actually emotionally affected me as a kid.
It's one of the first angles I actually remember growing up when they cut his hair. Yeah, it was weird because Andre had SD Jones as a partner.
You knew that was going to be good.
Was going wrong then. Because I'm like, why is Andre teaming up with this guy who loses all the time?
Speaking of STDs, they just mentioned how the Click killed Vader, and that's 100% right. That match where Shawn Michaels literally is screaming at Vader like he's a little child at SummerSlam, absolutely disgusting. And Vader was supposed to, by all accounts, even Bruce Pritchard admits it, he was supposed to go on, have a run with the belt, and then lose it back to Michaels at Royal Rumble. But Shawn Michaels completely just, if he was, I don't know, he just screwed him over.
Hey, I got to peel the curtain back here a little bit. This is off topic. But we're supposed to have a guest on tonight. I'm not throwing his name under the bus because I think I just figured something out. Joe, did you tell this guy we'd be on at 6?
Yeah. He lives in Tennessee. He might think it's the other 6.
I'm just making sure. I'm just wondering. Did that happen? The smile on your face is kind of...
That's all right. The fact that he can tell time living in Tennessee is impressive enough.
I'm not sure.
Now, you guys don't think that Vader was Vader's biggest enemy in the WWE?
He could have been. He didn't really get along with people. He wasn't known for getting along with people in the locker room. He wasn't known for doing his laundry. Apparently, he had some of the stinkiest clothes of all time. So that might have given him some trouble to begin with. I'm pretty sure Shawn, when he had those big bear paws wrapped around his face and could smell, instead of sun, he could actually smell nothing but dirt. Oh, wait, that's the same thing.
Plus,
Dave, you still there?
If you're on like Saudi Arabian TV, I'm not putting a hand on anybody. I want to get home safe.
Saudi Arabian TV. You don't miss the Saudi pay-per-views?
No.
I'm so disappointed Goldberg's not the world champion right now. Jesus.
Wait. Yeah, we need that belt back on someone who can really work.
Oh, boy. Tim says Vader in the black Mastodon gear.
Yeah, he's talking about that amazing helmet, the one that shot the steam out. And that thing actually worked better than Goldberg ever has.
That was the helmet he wore back when he wrestled Stan Hansen, where Hansen actually knocked his eye out of his socket, and Vader popped it back in Japan, and then they continued to wrestle the match. That's somewhere. I think Joe actually has that tape. It's
even with his. The funny thing is, even with his eye out of the socket, he still saw better than Stan Hansen.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I definitely have the raw footage of that, and that match is disgusting.
Oh god.
But I think when it comes down to this one, we can all agree Andre the Giant is the clear winner. As much as I appreciate Vader, I have utmost respect for anybody who can play in the NFL and then continue his career on through the WWE. And I mean, he even wrestled the same year that he died, for Christ's sakes.
Hey, gun to your head. If we had done Vader Big Show, we won't debate this. Who would have been the winner there?
Vader, not even close.
Okay.
I don't think like I said before, Big Show never carried a organization. Even in the WWE, where he lasted forever, he lasted by barely anybody noticing he was there, which is impressive when you're 7 feet tall.
All right. Well, on that note, so we
now, guys, moving on to tonight, we've got a couple big cards ahead of us, and we're coming off a big week last week. We had Halloween Havoc last week, and this week we are doing the go home show AW Full Gear. What did you guys think of Halloween Havoc last week? Did it live up to expectations?
I think we can all agree that Dave was wrong, that Halloween Havoc was fantastic.
That's not what happened. I told you it would be good. Now, I will say this. It got great ratings. Universally loved. I will say this. And you know me, and I know AJ, I think you're going to agree. There was one part of it I did not like.
Oh, yeah? What part was that, Dave?
I think it might have been the zombies in the friggin' ring. That's not what I want to see. I'm not a fan of that. But the rest of the show was good. I enjoyed everything else.
It was nice of Bray Wyatt to rent down his house to Sam Shaw. I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to call him Sam Shaw. Sorry, my bad. But it was one of those moments where I'm like,
guys, how disappointing was the spin the wheel, make the deal?
That was fine. We weren't hoping for a freaking coal miner's glove match like you were, Joe. Nobody wanted.
Fuck you. You got to spin the wheel, make the deal. You got a coal miner's glove match. You got some weird shit. Not basically 2 anything goes matches. That was some bullshit. That was the weakest part of the pay-per-view to me.
Hey, Tank asked a good question down there. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but he wants to know where Randy Asuka is. Oh, no, that's not what he asked. He asked why put the belt on
Gargano. Oh, they haven't taken the plow off him yet.
Yeah, he wants to know why Gargano got the title off of freaking...
it was weird because I was thinking if he got it, then they're going to put the belt on Candice, and they would kind of play up that act. They didn't do that, though. So I'm not really sure because Damian Priest has far more of an upside.
Dude, Priest outgrew that belt quickly.
Yeah.
That's why Gargano has the belt. Priest, I have it on in the background now because obviously NXT comes on tonight. I don't watch AEW. If I want to watch shit, I'll shit in the toilet and go sit on the ground and look at it. This was the best NXT show of this year, and it wasn't even close. Better than a takeover. You got the little, and you have the mystery, right?
Better than In Your House.
The reason I love In Your House was great, and the set was badass, but like. Everything to me makes sense. Now, why is Gargano and his wife not champions? Did you guys see the interview after the show between them where he's like, I love wheels? I mean, because she's so good at chasing. And who's saying that she's not going to get it at some point? Because Io's not doing anything else. Candice isn't going away yet. No. I mean, we have this dude running around in a scream mask that just helped Gargano win, tried to help Candice win. So I feel like she's going to get it. They just probably didn't want to do 2 title changes in one night. The card was good enough as it is, as it won in the ratings. But that's mainly because it was one of their weaker shows.
Oh, it was a horrible show.
I really love this match.
Horrible.
Damian Priest has to go after Balor. He outgrew the North American title quick.
I think he's outgrown, quite frankly, NXT. I think he belongs up on the main roster. He belongs working in bigger matches off of NXT. And it's nothing against NXT. We love NXT and the wrestling and what goes on there, but I think he belongs up there going after like a Roman Reigns or something of that nature, or working with Keith Lee.
Well, we got to build Keith Lee up right now on Raw. They have not done a great job of that.
No, they're not. They're trying. Like, they didn't have him take the pin. They had Sheamus take the pin Monday, and it's like, I see what they're doing. It's like, we're not hurting him, but we're not putting him over either. Yeah. And yet, Priest has to go after Balor. Undisputed Era is fully, feuding with Pat McAfee and his guys, which I actually dig that whole segment.
I like Pete Dunne.
And then Priest Balor, I'm down for that. So, and Balor can't stay healthy anyway, so you have to put the belt on a guy who's at least reliable to be there every week. We haven't seen Balor since the last takeover.
Yeah. My biggest pop of the night was actually Pete Dunne.
Yeah,
that was my biggest pop of the night in the shape that he's in right now. Holy Christ. He looked phenomenal.
I want to get your opinion on someone because I know you're not a big AEW fan, but there was one guy I thought universally kind of killed it. I really liked his work in AEW, and he's supposed to be back tonight talking. He's been missing because of the pandemic.
Oh, I know.
Pac, the bastard. What do you think about him? I'm just curious.
AEW, they just all run together. They can do flips and shit. I mean, they all do the same thing. Like, Pac's a great athlete. They're all great athletes. Yeah. Pac can do great, has great spots. All of them have great spots. The storytelling. Why is Roman Reigns and Jey Uso the best thing in professional wrestling right now? Because the story's fantastic. Why every time Bray and Alexa are on TV, people are like into it, even though they're in a fucking Firefly Funhouse doing shit that kids would do, swear jars. But why? The story behind it. The house on fire. Long-term storytelling. AEW, there's not really one storyline that I'm invested in. And do I care about the Inner Circle and MJF? I don't. Not at all.
There is nothing that draws my attention in more than Alexa Bliss.
Agreed.
Oh, and Bray Wyatt. Sorry, my bad.
Well, I will say this. I'm going to agree with
hashtag Tony Storm's ass?
We don't see enough of it.
Tony Storm's.
You'll see it tonight.
Sachi Blackheart's wrestling Storm tonight. Which is
you ready for a hot take?
That is going to be awesome.
I think Shotzi's hotter.
I don't disagree after seeing her in those outfits for a freaking spin the wheel. Holy Christ.
Yeah, it looks like JD is here.
Hey!
So we'll bring him on. Boom.
Hey, what's going on, everyone?
Welcome, JD.
Hey, what's up?
All right, AJ, I'm going to steal your thunder a little bit. But the man that is about to join us, JD Sloane, we talk about WrestleTopia all the time. JD, I've been trading with this dude forever. This is the first time we get to meet face to face. First off, how you doing, brother?
Good, man. Good. How are you guys all doing?
Great, man. Thanks for coming on.
Great, man.
And
nice. Now we asked JD to come on because we wanted him to kind of share some memories of his friend Tracey Smothers, who passed away this day last week. And it happened so quick, we didn't get to mention it live. So can you share some thoughts of your friend real quick for us?
Yeah, man. I appreciate, first of all, I appreciate anyone asking. Tracy was a good guy. I would, anyone that's listening to this, I would say if you don't know who Tracey Smothers is, take 5 minutes, type in his name in YouTube, and then go down that rabbit hole right there, because Tracy was one of those journeymen that came along during a whole different time in our industry, and he was able to stay relevant the entire time because he kind of changed with the times, and he went from being, a serious wrestler in the 80s and kind of turned into more of a comedy wrestler in the late 90s and into the 2000s. And man, he just became like a good way to explain it is he was kind of like everyone's stepdad. He was always there to pass along knowledge. He was always there to critique your matches. He was always there to tell you whether or not you did a good job or a bad job. Tracy would flat out tell you, "Hey man, hey man, you didn't do very good, man. That wasn't very good. That was the shit." That was Tracy, and some of the best. Something that I posted on Facebook, the very first match that I saw when I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, the main event of that show was Tracey Smothers versus JCI. And in that match, there was a spot where Jamie Dundee, Bill Dundee's son, hit Tracy with a drop kick. Tracy patters out to the outside, and this show was taking place in a parking lot underneath a tent. So one of the fans was smoking a cigarette, and when Tracy powders out of the ring, he rolls over and falls back on this fan that had a cigarette, and it burned Tracy. And I'm 15 years old. First time I'd ever been to a show in Tennessee. First time I've ever seen Tracey Smothers live. I see this, and Tracy rolls over, hits that cigarette, and without skipping a beat, Tracy turns around, smacks this dude in the face, rolls right back in the ring, and just goes back to wrestling. And like nothing happened. I mean, nobody stopped. Nobody did anything. They all just kept going. And I remember just thinking like, oh, I guess this is Tennessee wrestling, like, I guess this is just how they do it. So that's the craziness of Tracey Smothers is that right there, because nobody seemed to worry about that. Nobody seemed like, that seemed to be pretty normal when it came to Tracy. And later in life, I've known Tracy for about 10 years, and I've only been close to him for really like the last 5 years. Later in life, you just realize that, man, Tracy was just the most warm-hearted and and wonderful guy that you'll ever meet in this business, because there's a lot of different types of personalities, but Tracy's was definitely the best. So I really appreciate you guys wanting to know about Tracy, because Tracy was a good guy. He was a really good guy.
When I was wrestling, I never got to actually work with Tracy, but I did work with Adrian Street, and I worked with a lot of people in that southern region.
Yeah.
And everybody just absolutely loved Tracey Smothers. And the fact that he passed on as much knowledge and was willing to help as much talent as he did. We were watching something earlier today when he worked with who was the young lady that he worked with, Dave?
Sue Young.
He was working with a match with Sue Young for WrestleCon, and absolutely phenomenal match. And it just, the spots, working with her, the communication, just flawless. And he kept that throughout his whole career. He was just timeless.
And I mean, it didn't matter if Tracy was working in Nashville, if he was working in the Northeast, if he was working in the West Coast. Tracy got the fans involved, and he was able to be, no matter his age or what type of thing he was doing, he really got, heel or babyface, he really got the fans involved and made them want to cheer or boo or yell or scream. There was, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but Tracy did one of the IC, what's the thing that they do? They do those
Gathering of the Juggalos.
Gathering of the Juggalos. So I'm sure you guys have probably seen the clip where Tracy goes out. He's a big heel. He gets on the microphone, and the Juggalos are they're throwing batteries at him. They're throwing sticks at him. Tracy, we all sat down one night and watched that with him. Just sat outside out in my backyard and had a few adult beverages and some herb beef, and we're just sitting there watching it on YouTube, and Tracy just kind of telling us about it or whatever, and he's like, man, they all wanted to kill me out there, and we're like, oh, you hear that from a certain old school type of guy, about the fans wanting to kill him, and he's like, no, man, no, they wanted to kill me. They were breaking limbs off the trees. They were throwing batteries. I fucking hate it. I don't know about the language on this show.
No, that's fine.
We're good.
He's like, they wanted to fucking kill me, and I hated it, but I wasn't going nowhere. They had me that whole night. And we just started laughing, because Tracy was, Tracy was a badass, in real life. Tracy was, he was not the kind of guy, I would never have messed with Tracy. Even in his advanced stage, I wouldn't have messed with Tracy. We were always real careful about we never said Tracy was old in any way, shape, or form, because Tracy would get real mad about that, man. And when Tracy got mad, he had taken quite a few shots to the head, and sometimes he'd get real angry, and sometimes just out of nowhere, you just get mad, and so you kind of stayed clear from that. But Tracy was and then he'd call you the next day, or there's been many of times where he would, on a Monday nights were kind of like his night to take off from work and not wrestle and not travel, and so Tracy enjoyed himself some adult beverages on Monday nights. And a lot of times you get text messages from Tracy. He'd just be going off on you, just fucking wrestling promoters, y'all are snakes in the grass, y'all trying to keep all your money. And then the next day he'd send you, hey, JD, sorry about that, man, I didn't mean to do all that, I just had me some Jack and Coke, and you know how it goes. And you're like, yeah, no problem, Tracy, don't worry about it.
Dave actually gets like that if you're coming between him and an 18-year-old and some Blue Chew.
This isn't about me.
Ain't nothing wrong with Blue Chew. I got some Blue Chew. There ain't nothing wrong with Blue Chew, man. I'll tell you what.
I got some good stuff. We can talk later, but
I don't need it. I'm married.
Yeah,
I am too. But that's gotta spice it up a little bit.
Hey, I just wanted to say for the people out there too. Real easy match. If you're not feeling like deep diving and you got the WWE Network, Great American Bash, 1990. The Southern Boys, Tracey Smothers and Steve Armstrong versus the Midnight Express. I just watched it before we got on the show tonight, and wow. That's all I can say. You can tell they're calling it too, because it's not overly rehearsed and smooth, but they're doing so much good stuff, and it's real. And of course, Jim Cornette is so great in that too, but it's an awesome match.
See, Dave loves the wild-eyed Southern boys. I'm more of a fan of the FBI. To me, my two top Italians of all time are Bruno Sammartino and Tracey Smothers.
Yeah. And if you think about it, Tracey Smothers was a wild-eyed, was a full-blooded Italian, and he was part of the Nation of Domination in USWA. You know, I mean, so not only so many people can be so many different kinds of things, you know, but Tracey pulled it off.
The fact that you could be an African-American Italian and be a wild-eyed Southern boy, you must have been from Sicily.
Yeah. And, you know, that's another thing, you know, the whole Confederate flag and everything with Tracy, you know. I'm from California. So I've been in Nashville for a while, but I have no Southern heritage. I have no Southern pride. It's just not something I have, you know. And so as I got to know Tracy, Tracy on more than one occasion told me, you know, that it's all a gimmick. It's just all a gimmick. And there was a time in our country where that gimmick doesn't mean what it does today. And, you know, he never meant any disrespect to anyone for anything. He was just doing a gimmick, and it worked, especially in the southern states for a long time. And he changed with the time. You know, there's been more one occasions that he has lost, had to burn his flag, or, you know, had to, and he does it, you know, it just doesn't matter to him. It's not a big deal. He understands. He was able to progress with times and understand that, you know, things changed, and it made people feel different. And because that's, I guess, the kind of person that Tracy was. He's like, oh yeah, this isn't as good as I thought it was, you know, 20 years ago. Got to change my opinions and ideologies now. And Tracy did. You know, Tracy was a good guy when it came to stuff like that.
JD, for the background of the fans too, we didn't really get to talk too much. Tell them a little bit about your career, who trained you, and some of the promotions you worked for as well.
So I was trained by Steve Dahl and Reno Riggins. And most people remember Steve Dahl as part of Well Done. Yeah. And I don't fault anyone that remembers that, or that's the only place that they know him. Reno, you know, was a perennial enhancement talent in the late 80s and the 90s. But here in Nashville, they were at one time called the Tennessee Vols, and one of the most white-hot heel tag teams on the entire circuit, especially 87, 98, 99, 2000. They trained me at Main Event Championship Wrestling School in Nashville, Tennessee, in 2004. I've worked for USWO, Showtime All-Star Wrestling, Crossfire Entertainment, Arcadian Wrestling. I'm currently the promoter for New South Championship Wrestling, which is part of the JCP Promotions, which is James Carver Promotions. Underneath that promotional umbrella is Ultimate Championship Wrestling, New South Championship Wrestling, UPW, and a few others. There's a promotion in Texas, a promotion in Georgia. We do, you know, Southern style wrestling. Yeah. Which is, I started, I was not like a big wrestling fan when I was growing up. Ultimate Warrior fan or a Hogan fan or anything like that. I was very aware of pro wrestling, and I was interested in it. You know, I especially when I was young, there's a lot of things that, like, you see it on TV and then you think about it all day long, but I wasn't a wrestling fan. And around 92, I got my first computer and started tape trading, finding, you know, USWA stuff or world class things I'd never seen before. And that really just kind of opened my horizon to pro wrestling and magazines, you know, big magazine mark. And so as I started tape trading and stuff, I got more invested, and I've always really enjoyed that Southern style kind of wrestling, real wild. The fans here in Tennessee are very much like they were 30 years ago. You know, they're still hot, and they still love the baby face and hate the heel, and they make lots of noise, and they still buy their 4x6s and their 8x10s autographed, and you know, the baby faces still come out and shake hands during the intermissions, and you know, that whole thing. And so I love the area that I'm in. I love the fans that I perform in front of. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan or be involved in wrestling. It is very different though than it was 20 years ago when I started, and it's a little bit more wide open. some respect, and then it's also a lot more contained. You can't, I don't know, you can't be the kind of heel that you used to be able to be. You can't. It's just a lot.
Dave tells me all the time that I shouldn't be the heel that I used to be.
It's hard.
I'm still doing it.
It's difficult. I mean, some people can, some people are able to do it the right way. It's hard. It's difficult to be that kind of guy like there used to be. And because it's, at the end of the day, the whole purpose is to make people hate you.
Right.
But for some reason, you can be a real despicable son of a bitch in a movie, and people are able to understand that that's a character. But if you do it in wrestling, it's people are so much more hyper ended, and they believe that that's really you or something.
I hate to say it, but one of the people who's actually been able to pull that off recently is Corbin. I think Corbin does a great job of staying as a natural, pure heel, and is not allowing himself to do some of that cooler things that a lot of the heels start to do, where the fans start to cheer for you, even though you're a heel. Back in the day, that used to be what wrestling was. Like I said, I trained with Adrian Street. Adrian Street did that gimmick that was very flamboyant and very ambiguous back in the day. And in Southern wrestling, where he worked most of the time, that got him a lot of heat, and to a point where people would try to harm him. And now wrestlers are almost afraid to do that with the cancel culture that we have, with oh God, I might offend people. If I offend you, then I've done my job. If I don't offend you and I don't make you feel a little queasy in your stomach, then God damn it, turn me babyface, because I'm just too damn pretty.
I heard that was something that Tracy was really good at too. I think I want to say they might have been doing a benefit, maybe for Tommy Rogers, one of the Fantastics, or it might have been Fulton. Somebody was coming back and he was talking about having a problem in one of his eyes, and Tracy thumbed him in the eye.
Bobby Fulton.
Bobby Fulton. It was Bobby Fulton. Thank you. Yeah. So Tracy was obviously not afraid to go for that heel heat. He loved to do it.
He came out to the ring. Bobby Fulton was telling him he couldn't wrestle that night. It was supposed to be his retirement match because he had some problems with his eye. And in the ring was Stephen P. News, which is Jim Cornette's lawyer, and Stephen's daughter. And his daughter had drawn a painting of Bobby Fulton. And so Tracy took that painting from her, old school. This is super, super old school, and destroys the painting over Bobby Fulton, And from what I understand, it got a huge reaction from the crowd, because, oh my God, this young lady, she makes this great painting for Bobby, and this is Bobby's last match, and he's coming out here and he's got this problem with his eye and he can't wrestle. And then Tracy comes out and destroys the painting over Bobby's head. So, and Tracy was the kind of guy, man, he get you never know what he's going to say. You don't know what Tracy's going to do or going to say if he grabs the microphone, and he would go out there, and the whole everybody's going to die thing, man, I don't think anyone else could do that. I really don't. How do you go out to the ring and you say, if you all stop saying Tracy sucks, everybody going to die? You're telling them you're going to kill them. I'm going to come out there, I'm going to kill every last one. That's extreme. It is.
Tracy was not exactly made for live TV.
No, not at all. I mean, he was, because you couldn't take your eyes off him, but no, not for the sponsors, not at all.
Cornette was saying something on his podcast about how they had a bunch of bloopers for him and Smokey with his interviews, because he would just go off sometimes. And there was one where he just went off on WCW for some reason. He's like, I don't care if it's Big Fat Van Vader or Eric Bischoff. And then Tracy goes on to give everybody, anyone's got a problem with this, he goes out and he gives his actual home address.
Oh, yeah.
Losing it. And then
I'll tell you what.
Kept it because he ended up making sense of the interview still. He managed to work it all together in his program. But just the fact that Tracy would give out his address was like, okay, this guy's passionate and he's a badass because he just doesn't care. Because
he's like, come at me. I mean, Tracy will fight you, He welcomed that. Totally. I had written on my Facebook that story that I told you all about Tracy pattering out and punching the fan in the face and working the match. And Jamie Dundee is on my Facebook, and he today, this afternoon, read that, and he's like, yeah, brother, that's exactly how I remember it, yada, yada, yada. Hey, man, text me when you got time. And then put his phone number in the comment of my Facebook, on my Facebook post. And I'm like, Jamie, you can't put your phone number there. I've got 5,000 people that are on my friends list. Now
That's
you're
awesome.
gonna have 5,000 text messages now.
That's why I only put Dave's in ours.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
JD, are you still doing the tape traders guide to the 90s there?
Yeah, since the pandemic, I like to interview people.
Yeah.
So since the pandemic, haven't been any shows or anything like that. So I'm putting up some old episodes that I recorded and for one reason or another never actually. And our first show at New South Championship Wrestling in Franklin takes place November 21st. So hopefully I can get back, in the swing of things, so to speak, and get some new episodes with some people up. I'd always wanted to do one with Tracy, and never just had. Tracy was the best guy to storytell, because he would just go off in so many different ways. You'd ask him one question, and that answer would be, an hour and a half later, and he'd tell you about 3 other stories. So you just kind of sit there and listen, And so it was. I'll tell you guys a really good story. We were working for Arcadian Wrestling Association, and we would do 3 and 4 day loops. And one of the towns was Springfield, Tennessee, which is Tracy's hometown. So before the shows get started, we're all going out to eat. It was me and Tracy and then 2 other guys. I don't want to say their names because I don't have permission to use their names, but we were rolling around smoking before the show started. And so Tracy's like, go this way. He's telling us about growing up. My buddy Bucky's from over here. The thugs are over here, and I'm just like, this is man, being offered a seat in the car with someone like Tracy, that's just a really awesome thing, So Tracy's like, okay, now here. So we turn. He's like, all right, drive up this hill. And we're driving up, we're way out in the middle of Springfield, Tennessee, in the sticks, driving up these hills. And he's like, all right, pull in right over here. He's like, this is the house I grew up in. And we're like, oh, awesome, man. And so we get out of the car. We're walking around the property. We're looking in the windows. He's like, yeah, I used to do this. I used to do this. We used to go over here, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, man, this is beautiful, Tracy. This property's nice. He's like, yeah. I'm really glad the people that live here ain't here. And I'm like, oh, this isn't your family's home? He's like, oh, no, my parents sold this years ago, man. And I'm looking in windows and everything. And I'm like, oh, Tracy, you should have said something, man. I thought we were coming to your old place. He's like, yeah, I'm glad those people ain't here. I don't know what they think us walking around like that.
Well, I think that has to be the main event right there. So, JD, is there anything else you want to promote you have coming up? Please go ahead.
Man, everybody, if you will just on social media, check out WrestleTopia, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, eBay, YouTube, WrestleTopia. You can find just about everything I do, including the Tape Traders Guide to 90s Pro Wrestling. It's got its own Facebook page, but if you go to WrestleTopia, you'll find the links for everything. I also run multiple buy, sell, and trade groups on Facebook, old school wrestling, DVD tape trading, magazine newsletters. It's funny because I'm not a collector per se, but collecting is such a big part of my fandom that I've never really been able to get it out of my system. And so the way that I seem to collect and make it profitable is to sell everything. So I buy as much as I can and then resell it as fast as I can, kind of thing. And so I got lots of groups of that. So if you're able to hear this, check out WrestleTopia on any social media platform. You'll find me. Keep Tracey Smothers' memory alive. And if you've never seen his shit, like I said, type his name into YouTube and go down that rabbit hole because you'll be willfully surprised.
Now, JD, I want to lock you into something here real quick. Once we actually get past this COVID crap, and we're actually able to get back to live shows and stuff like that, we eventually want to take the working fans on the road and go to some live shows. We would love to come down and cover one of your live shows with the Working Fans podcast, and hopefully we can get that done and have a little fun with you while we're down there. Maybe buy you a beer and celebrate some wrestling.
I will always take someone buying me some beer, man. I'll take a vodka tonic, actually.
Nothing wrong with that.
I'll bring the Blue Chew. We're good.
Hey, right. Hey, I'm cool with some free Blue Chews too, man. But yeah, Franklin, Kentucky, New South Championship Wrestling. Check that out. That's the promotion that I'm the promoter of, the on-screen promoter. We have a local TV show here. You can also see New South Wrestling Network.com for the pivot share. In Rockwood, Tennessee, I work for MSWA, Mid-South Wrestling Alliance. In Portland, Tennessee, for Pro Wrestling Entertainment. There's lots of, we have like Overdrive Wrestling here in Nashville, Freedom Pro, Nashville's the big city, and there's lots of different things coming through here. So, man, whenever you guys are ready to travel, ready to come see some shows, man, you're always welcome. Any one of the shows I'm at, you just let me know, get you guys in there. You guys can come interview whoever you want to interview. Awesome. The whole 9 yards, film whatever you want to film. Nice. By all means, we're always happy to get our name out there and bring more eyes and more fans to what we do, because we think what we do is some of the very best work in the United States. And to be totally honest, I've never really felt like this area, we're not really Southern, we're not really Northern. Since the fall of the USWA, I don't think that we get the kind of respect that we deserve, because we're out there working hard. We've got a lot of great, talented young men and young women out here. And I definitely am all about more people knowing about what we do.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Well, Joe had to sign off. He had some internet issues, but he wanted to say he was really happy to have you on. Joe, obviously you guys have done some tape trading.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah.
So,
Joe's a bit of a coward. You scared him by talking about Tracey Smothers, and he ran away like a bitch.
Hey, it's understandable. Tracy's a bad motherfucker, man.
Yeah. I would have ran away too. So. But yeah, man, thanks for having me on, and I think this is gonna be it. We're gonna sign out. So, hey,
thank you guys very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome.
All right, fellas. Before we end it, what's your guys' expectations for tonight?
As far as AEW goes, well, just say it's a go-home show. I'll leave it at that for Josh. And as far as NXT goes, I am really looking forward to the ladies' matches tonight. Shotzi and Toni Storm, Amber Moon and Dakota Kai. There's a couple other good matches on there. I know Kushida is wrestling Ciampa. That can't be bad.
No. And I'm going to go out on a limb. I think NXT is going to win 2 weeks in a row. I think AEW is putting the drizzling shits out there. I know I'm not one to actually voice my opinion, but this time I'm going to. I think NXT is going to take their shoe, shine it up, and stick it straight up AEW's ass this week.
Ratings have a lot to do with momentum, and they got momentum. So we'll see.
Now, speaking of momentum, as we're signing off today, I want to make sure that the fans of the Working Fans podcast, make sure you're tuning into some of Josh's stuff, because Josh has got DeBord Room, which is fantastic. He's got regularly scheduled hostilities, which I absolutely love, primarily because I've been on it. And I'm a bit of an egomaniac. But let me tell you something. This guy right here, you may not have heard a lot from him this week. Extremely talented, great opinions on wrestling. His co-host,
he lost his title, so Jesus. But dude, NXT tonight, the women's matches. That's the difference for me between both of these. AEW, they have a video game before they have an established women's division. That's all you need to know about them. I mean, their women's division's terrible, and if Thunder Rosa's really coming to WWE, that's the biggest loss AEW's had in the last 6 months. I don't care how many ratings wars they win, because Thunder Rosa was literally in their back pocket.
Yeah.
And
how bad does the women's wrestling in AEW have to be that you have somebody coming in, working shots for you, and you can't lock them down?
It's rough. When you're the best ladies wrestler, and I've said it since day one, is Cody Rhodes.
Amen. Oh, absolutely, by far.
And I guess he'll be allowed to get his name back soon, because WWE dropped the lawsuit or whatever it was to get the rights to the last name Rhodes. So Cody's going to actually get you're a little bitch when you don't own the rights to your last name.
Well, that, and I think the WWE finally went, you know what? Why are we wasting money on this last name that means shit in wrestling these days?
Yeah, since that poor Dusty passed, Dusty's Spirit's the best thing about the road still going on. I mean, I forgot Dustin Rhodes is even still with AEW. Oh, yeah, and one note that just came out: Sean Spears and Scorpio Sky was advertised for tonight, got pulled due to COVID contact. So somebody else is running a sloppy shop, maybe. I don't like the shit talking, man. It really rubs me the wrong. I'm a shit talker, but AEW just takes way too many. Taz took some shots at Triple H last night on AEW Dark. I mean, they just can't help themselves. It's like a teenage girl. It reminds me of like my little sister when she was 14, making fun of somebody's hair. It's like for 6 months straight. It's like, okay, we get it.
Well, they're also not learning from the past, because the big mistake WCW made, and one of their big downfalls, was the fact that they kept mentioning the WWE. And the big swing came when they, on their broadcast, mentioned Mick Foley winning the world title. And now AEW is going down that same path of mentioning the competition every week, whereas you'll notice the WWE still doesn't breathe a word of their name.
No, people want to criticize WWE for that, which is crazy to me. But before we wrap it up, I want to show you guys what's coming up this week. I will be on another podcast in like 3 hours. I'll be on Game Winning Drive tonight. They're doing their mid-season NFL awards, which I completely butchered all my predictions except for one. But here's the upcoming lineup, and we'll be right back.
Guys, what you didn't catch while we were off camera is Josh was actually telling me his number one pick this week coming up is my Jets over his Patriots, I believe.
Oh, God, you're a Jets fan. Dude, I just finished my cheap plug. My Week 9 NFL predictions article will be out tomorrow, and I wrote, if the Jets beat New England, I will film myself throwing my Cam Newton Patriots jersey off of my balcony at my apartment next week. So
oh, God, please let it happen.
that'll be a DeBord room exclusive. I'll take my camera outside and launch it. I'll probably run down there and get it after the show. It was $100 that I might as well just set on fire. But
I got to tell you, obviously the Patriots are the favorite in that game, but my Jets are notorious for fucking up everything. And right now we're locked down for the number one pick, which means we'll probably win a game and lose it.
Yeah, I'm hoping New England loses out so we can go grab Trevor, but won't happen. So everybody's watching NXT tonight. So you guys both watch AEW as well, or you guys just – I watch NXT and then I try to watch AEW.
I watch everything so that it's easier to insult it if I actually don't like something. I want to get an honest opinion.
Yeah, I watch NXT
so much
and
right now.
yeah, and it's been a rough week. Raw was really rough, but I digress. But I appreciate you guys having me on. Everything Entertainment, we got Game Winning Drive tonight at 9, RSH tomorrow. You guys every Wednesday. You're always 6 o'clock, right?
Yeah. Oh yes.
And
I can tell you guys, I never miss RSH. It's actually one of my favorite shows to listen to and watch. Check out all everything entertainment products because they're all fantastic.
I beat COVID, so I'm back in studio tomorrow for the first time in a month. So that's exciting. Finally, dude. Jesus Christ, being quarantined sucked. But thank you guys for tuning in. Joe's out in the woods, lost somewhere. I think he even lost cell signal. He was texting me, and he ain't even responding now. So he might be living that cabin in the woods life from that horror movie right now.
He was gonna text you, but then he got high.
That's fair. Hey, the guy in the cabin in the woods movie, he's the only one that survived, right? Because he was smoking the whole time. So maybe he's on the right path.
Yes.
All right, guys, I appreciate you guys having me on. Make sure to check out Working Fans. Follow them on Twitter. I do. Facebook, YouTube. You guys are all over YouTube. Yeah. Great addition to Everything Entertainment. I've caught all your guys' shows since you've been with us. You guys you made a Make-A-Wish and brought Chuck on one of your first episodes. We appreciate that. You know, he needs that kind of publicity sometimes. And look forward to you guys taking this AE thing to the next level.
We hope so, man. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.